On this episode of Contagious Influencers of America podcast, from what he calls the biggest career failure to reinventing success, the guy behind the mega series The Chosen, American film and television director, writer, and producer Dallas Jenkins gets vulnerable with us.
And then it just completely bombed. I mean, the financial returns were much lower than even their lowest projections. And so they all backed out of future projects, and I was immediately a director with no future. And I got to the place where I was like, you know what? If I never make another movie, I'm okay with that. I just want to be in God's will. That is what led me to be open to filming a short film on my friend's farm in Illinois.
I'm David Sands, and this is CIA, Contagious Influencers of America. Dallas Jenkins, he's the guy behind the mega hit series, The Chosen. I want to tell you, I could not wait to get him on because what he has pulled off over the last few years is just beyond miraculous. Years ago, he did a film called The Resurrection of Gavin Stone. And the movie, it was a good movie, but it just financially was not a success. And many people would have just said, you know what, this isn't for me. I've got to do something else with my life. But yet he was driven, and he did a short film that then turned into this, this whole Chosen series, which is really, it's turned into a movement, which happens to be the highest crowd-funded project of all time. As a matter of fact, it's so successful that there's now a special in theaters that Fathom has put out. Fathom is that event company that normally puts something in the theaters for a night or two. Well, this thing is in theaters for multiple nights during the month of December. It's like off the charts, running night after night, and it's called Christmas with the Chosen, The Messengers. This guy has an incredible background. First of all, he's the son of an iconic figure in the Christian fiction world, the guy that wrote Left Behind. Jerry Jenkins, that's his dad. So this is in his blood. This is in his DNA. So I can't wait for you to meet Dallas. He's a remarkable filmmaker, and we're going to get to that in just a second right here on CIA. But first, wouldn't it be nice to have a health insurance plan that not only meets your needs, but also shares your beliefs? Well, believe it or not, that sort of plan does exist, and it's called MediShare. MediShare is a healthcare sharing ministry where members not only share each other's medical bills, but also pray for each other's medical challenges. How cool is that? Not to mention, there's huge savings with MediShare. There's low-cost options for singles, families, seniors, and groups. In fact, the typical family saves $500 a month. You also get a massive doctor network and a free 24/7 telehealth option. No wonder MediShare gets double the customer satisfaction ratings compared with typical health insurance. So call now at 833-32-BIBLE. That's 833-32-BIBLE, 833-32-BIBLE. Let's get to that interview that I just recently did with the great filmmaker, the guy that's just setting the world on fire, Dallas Jenkins. Hey, Dallas, how you doing?
Good, David. Good to talk to you.
Likewise. It's this has been a long time coming, and I'm so glad we have this time together today. And I guess I want to rewind a little bit and go under the hood and have the conversation that we probably should have had over the last year or two. But first, I want to talk about the big deal you have coming up for Christmas, because I know that's really important, and it's going to be something very, very special, especially for all of us coming out of this pandemic and wanting to get back into the swing of things, the holiday spirit, want to be amongst other folks, and you've come up with a perfect solution for that. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, thank you. The Christmas special is something that is really close to our hearts because The Chosen was launched with a Christmas short film that I did for my church's Christmas Eve service back in 2017. And so the opportunity to not only tell the story of the arrival of Christ, but the opportunity to gather, the opportunity to assemble all these artists who love Jesus and love Christmas and have their own special spin on Christmas songs, which is like what The Chosen is. It's our own special spin on these famous gospel stories and the birth of Christ. And so, Isaiah 43:19 says, "Behold, I am doing a new thing." And that is kind of in many ways, the theme verse of The Chosen. We're always trying to do new things, but while protecting and preserving the beauty and the truth and the authenticity of the gospel stories. And this Christmas special, I believe, accomplishes that while also giving, like you said, viewers the opportunity to gather. People love to gather for Christmas. And this seemed like a great, just a great opportunity for the first time we're ever going to be in theaters. This show wasn't made for theaters. It's a TV show, but the response of the fans has been so strong. And last year's Christmas special went over so well as a live stream. We thought, this year, especially with a new episode, let's launch in theaters and see how that goes. And so far, the response has been overwhelming.
Well, I understand it set a record in the first 12 hours, and this is going to be one of these special Fathom events. So is it just one? I know it starts December 1st. Is it just going to be in theaters that day or for a couple of days?
So the original plan was it's going to be in theaters December 1st and 2nd. Most Fathom events are one night, one screening, 7 o'clock, one night. Occasionally it's 2 nights. So with us, it was 2 nights. Then we did the live stream, and without spending a dime, they sold out pretty much of almost every theater in the first 2 nights over 30 days before it debuted. So the next morning, all the theater chains and Fathom events said, we need to add screens, we need to add dates. And so I believe this is a record, but it's going to be in theaters now for 10 days.
Oh my gosh.
And
that's more than probably at least 75% of the films that hit theaters.
Right. So it's committed for 10 days with multiple screenings every day. It's crazy. So I don't make predictions or goals. I'm more about just following and surrendering. But it sure looks like this is just going to continue to grow. Well,
you have created this incredible sensation, and we all have heard that it's the number one crowd-funded film or project or series of all time, and which is beyond incredible. But let's talk about why. I mean, look, this story has been told time and time and time again, these stories. What makes The Chosen stand out from the rest of the crowd? What's the secret ingredient?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'll speak for what we hear, for what the viewers tell us. And it happens to match our intention, which is great. What we hear over and over again is the word authentic. They watch the show and it feels like Jesus and his followers and his enemies are real human beings, and they feel like we're putting them in that first century setting. And we believe that if you can see Jesus through the eyes of those who actually met him, you can be changed and impacted in the same way they were. So apparently, it seems from what they're telling us, that's happening. And that sounds obvious. You'd think, well, of course they were real human beings. That's not really a secret sauce. And all I can tell you is that when I was raised watching all these Jesus movies and miniseries, I never fully felt like the Jesus and even the followers in these portrayals, at least most of them, were real human beings. Our experience with Jesus when it comes to media or art is oftentimes distant and formal, and he's a stained glass window, or the disciples are a statue that you observe as you go on a tour of a basilica. And I think that the opportunity to do this as a multi-season show and take our time with the characterization and with the backstories and the human interaction and the cultural context and the historical context, and the dialogue feeling like human beings actually talk and not like they're just quoting King James scripture. That has seemed to be the secret sauce. People feel like watching Jesus dance with his friends at a wedding and make a joke or laugh at a joke or dress a wound or Simon Peter having a marital argument puts the viewer in the realness, the, oh my goodness, this actually happened of it all. And when you really believe that, and when you really experience that, then you can really believe in Jesus, and you can really believe that he did these things and that he can change your life just like he changed their life. And that seems to be what's happening.
So what inspired you to go that direction?
Well, I did a short film for my church's Christmas Eve service, and it was 18 minutes long, and it was about the birth of Christ from the perspective of the shepherds. And changing the perspective and adding that backstory, we take you earlier in the day, what the shepherds were doing that day, and everything that led up to that moment when they encountered the angels and then went and saw the Christ child. I felt, just as a follower of Christ and as a viewer and a lover of media, I felt like I explored more and experienced more in those 18 minutes than I ever had when it came to the nativity. And I thought there's something to that. At the same time, I was binge watching a show called The Wire, which, doesn't necessarily sound like something that would be cohesive with a Jesus show. But that show explored all the different angles of the drug war and the criminal side of the city of Baltimore. You were in the mayor's office, you're on the street, you're in the police department, you're in their personal lives, and all these different approaches to this storyline. I just thought, man, if that was done in the context of first century Galilee, and we were able to explore the story of Jesus from all these different perspectives and all these people who encountered them, boy, that could be really profound. And having the time to explore it in cultural backstory, historical backstory, human interaction from season to season, episode to episode, man, that I've never seen that before. And I think that's part of what has kept some of the Jesus portrayals from being quite as impactful. And boy, if we could, kind of experience the same kind of impact that we have with the current shows that we binge watch, but from the story of Jesus, man, we could disrupt the whole world. And I feel like I really feel like it could be emotionally life-changing and spiritually life-changing. That was the premise. That was the hope. And the rest is history.
So when you decided to go the crowdfunding route, how much did you raise for the season one?
Yeah, I came to it kicking and screaming. I thought it was a ridiculous idea, but we ended up generating $10 million from 19,000 people around the world.
So is this because you couldn't get a traditional studio to put up the money, or why did you decide to go that route?
I assumed we probably couldn't. When the idea was pitched to use crowdfunding, I thought, all right, let's go for it. I would say my primary motivation was that we would be able to maintain total control of the content. I didn't take the time to pitch this to a bunch of Hollywood studios. I was coming off of a career failure, so I wasn't exactly, going to be, I don't think the scepter was going to be lowered to allow me entry into the hallowed halls of Hollywood in that time after my movie had just failed. So, but I think also I didn't want someone else who financed it to then be able to control the content. I thought, well, if we can pull this off, if the crowd will finance this, then that will allow us to maintain control of the content and make sure that it doesn't get influenced by people who might not have the same intentions that we do. So, but again, I didn't think it was going to work. I didn't think we were going to generate millions of dollars in crowdfunding. I was just going day by day and following wherever God led. So I can't tell you I had some grand plan for it at the time. I was like, all right, let's give it a shot and see what happens.
So you talk about you came off of sort of a string of or a failure. How did you Did you think let's talk about that moment, because a lot of us have been through that and a lot of folks are going through that now, and you sort of lose sight of where you want to go and what you think you should do and where God wants you to go. I mean, how did you regroup? How did you pivot when you came off of that failure? I mean, it was simply a failure financially, correct? It wasn't necessarily a creative failure. It just didn't do what it did. A couple million at the box office. Tell me about that film and what you expected and what happened.
Yeah, so the film was The Resurrection of Gavin Stone, and there was a lot of big Hollywood producers and financiers behind it. You know, companies like Blumhouse and WWE and Walden and Universal, and the movie had tested extremely high, and there was a lot of anticipation for it. We expected it. We didn't expect it to be huge or anything, but we just thought it would be a nice, solid, success, and would allow us to do many other projects like that and to continue to grow this faith-based initiative that we were doing with these Hollywood companies. And then it just completely bombed. I mean, it just, the financial returns were much lower than even their lowest projections. And so they all backed out of future projects, and I was immediately a director with no future. In terms of pivoting, I really didn't pivot at all at the moment. I just God spoke to me through my wife and through someone I barely know who reached out to me on Facebook, and a few people just kind of shared some profound spiritual truths with me. And I got to the place where I was like, you know what? If I never make another movie, I'm okay with that. I just want to be in God's will. I'm not going to project things anymore. I'm not going to have goals anymore. I'm not going to, the whole business axiom of, kind of have a 5-year plan. I just realized, where I'm at in 5 years is none of my business. That's something Phil Vischer learned after he lost VeggieTales and wrote about it in his extraordinary book. And it changed. That truth was really impactful for me, and I embraced it. I was like, okay, whatever you want, God, big or small, I don't care. Success or failure, I don't care. I just want to provide my 5 loaves and 2 fish and make sure that they're as good and healthy as they can be. And what you do with them is up to you. And that is what led me to be open to filming a short film on my friend's farm in Illinois, 20 minutes from my house, from my church. Certainly didn't feel like a big Hollywood production. It was a significant step down from that standpoint, but I was on the path of doing whatever God wanted, not having Hollywood or career goals. And so that kind of embracing that surrender, being willing to just do it big or small, I think is where God was like, okay, now you're ready for The Chosen, which I wouldn't have been a couple years earlier. And now that the show has gotten where it's gotten, and now a lot of my previous goals of, wanting to be affirmed by Hollywood and wanting, to have what the world would call success, it's coming now, but it's coming at a time when I really couldn't care less about it. So I think that's, it's a nice part of the story. Stance. I don't know what the future holds, nor do I really care. But it's kind of an ironic twist in the story, is that now some of the things I'd previously wanted are arriving, but I just don't care.
So on the crowdfunding side of things, what do you think resonated with the folks? Why do you think they put up the funds, these 19,000 people? Then again, what made it different from anything they'd ever seen or heard about before? It's not like you put up there coming from Steven Spielberg. Hey, I can own a piece of the next. First of all, what did you promise the people? What did they get out of it? Or they just put up money, or did you give them an autographed DVD? Or why do people give you money? Why do people give you millions of dollars, Dallas?
Yeah, I don't know. No, I think there's 2 things that we didn't do that I think resonated with people. One, we didn't, 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 we didn't we didn't do the whole, you get a t-shirt, this is a, it was an investment. I mean, they we're not a nonprofit. So this wasn't like GoFundMe where you put up $10 and you get an autograph something, or you get a t-shirt if you give $20. This is an investment. The barrier to entry was actually somewhat significant. I mean, the minimum was $100. You had to go through about 5 or 6 steps online to, you had to sign a bunch of things and, read. I mean, we were SEC qualified. So this was something we had to be, very legally and financially above board on, everything was, was transparent. So I think that was interesting to people. I mean, I think that an opportunity to own a piece of it was interesting. But the second thing is, I think the fact that we weren't Hollywood, that I wasn't Steven Spielberg. I mean, I love Steven Spielberg, but I think there was something about the disruptive, outside the system nature of it that gave people trust. I was very authentic from day one. I was like, yeah, I'm coming off of a career failure. This is a short film I did on my friend's farm. They loved that short film. I mean, that short film had a transcendent impact on people. People talked about how when they watched it, they were weeping, and God was like, had his, fist in their chest, compelling them to be part of what was next. But the fact that I was transparent, and then I just talked directly to them and had them be part of the process, and I showed them what we were doing, and I pulled back the curtain and I said, here's what it looks like, here's what we're doing, here's my co-writers, here's our plans. I think that really increased their trust. I think the fact that it wasn't Hollywood meant, and I told them, we're going to get to control the content. I feel like I think they believed that I was going to be, faithful to the character and intentions of Jesus in the Gospels. And I think they trusted that. And yeah, when I think back to how we got $10 million based on a low budget short film that we filmed behind a barn, I think the only explanation for it is that that piece of it actually compelled them. I think that was part of what made them trust it more than if we would have come with a big slick presentation.
Let's talk about legacy a minute. I want to talk about your parents and the influence that they've had in your life. And of course, we know your dad wrote one of the biggest novels of all time, or series. And then I want to talk about that a little bit and what kind of influence he has had on your life. And then you originally started your production company, which I didn't know, with your mom, right?
For some reason, that's on Wikipedia or something, and we laugh about it every time we see it. I'm not sure where that came from.
You can edit it. Maybe your mom put it up there.
Yeah, no, she didn't for sure, because she doesn't like the limelight. But if that's in any press materials, or if it's on Wikipedia or something, I remember I was recently introduced at a speaking engagement, and they mentioned that, and I didn't correct it. I just laughed. So it's not at all accurate. I don't know how it got out there. But
okay.
My dad and I started a production company back in 2000. After, as Left Behind was exploding and he had the financial means to do something like that, we wanted to make movies. And my dad's significant influence was twofold. One, I grew up obviously in a storytelling household, reading his books and seeing him just in general life. He was a storyteller. And so I inherited that desire from him, as well as his desire to tell stories from a biblical and faithful perspective. But I also, a big influence on me was watching the Left Behind phenomenon. I didn't know that at the time, and I didn't know that when I started The Chosen, that The Chosen would end up, having the success that it did, and kind of, I don't know, following in the footsteps of Left Behind is a good way to put it. But I saw my dad achieve extraordinary success, and the money and the influence and the press and all of that, having his books show up on New York Times bestseller lists and all of that, and people telling him your content changed my life. And I saw him get even more humbled and more surrendered and more on his knees. And he had a prayer bench next to his, to his desk, that he got during the Left Behind process. Watching that was profoundly impactful as well. And the success that The Chosen is having, it's very easy for me to not take credit for it, partially because it's so significant. I'm obviously not capable of that, and I'm not that good. But also, I saw my dad experience it, and he modeled that for me. And so I think that's as big of an influence for me as the books themselves.
So this is going to be an incredible legacy for you to pass on, and let's talk about that and how you look at yourself and your responsibility to your family and what you hope to pass on with this, because between the Left Behind series and now the Chosen series, you think your kids are going to get into business, and are you going to at some point plan on handing over the baton to them and see what they come up with?
Well, my son is currently a film major at Liberty, so he's definitely inherited the desire to tell stories and to work in film. I hope more than anything that the legacy that my kids inherit is to love Jesus and know Jesus more. That's the end game of The Chosen. The show is just a means to that end. So whatever means to that end, my kids embrace. I really don't care. I just want them to love and know Jesus more. So my son seems to want to make movies. Whatever that looks like is up to him and the Lord. My other kids have different career paths. But man, if any parent, I think, would agree with this, is that whatever career path they choose is irrelevant. If we want them to marry well, and we want them to love Jesus and know Jesus more. And if the show is helping them do that, then I'll die happy.
So, did you think this thing would this phenomenon would go beyond one season?
I didn't think it wouldn't. I didn't think it. I mean this, David. I really don't think about the future much. I mean, now it's obvious we're going to do 7 seasons, and as writers, we have an obligation to know where we're going if we have the opportunity to do that. So from moment one, we were outlining what season 7 would look like and season 6, and we wanted to make sure that we were, writing a story that wasn't aimless. We were writing with the end in mind, so that if we had the opportunity to do that, it would work. But I didn't know if season 1 was going to happen, and then when we got the opportunity to do it, I didn't know if we'd get a chance to do season 2, and I didn't think about that. I genuinely don't think in terms of goals anymore. I think in terms of process, and part of that process means just humbling myself to God and being grateful for any opportunities He has. And right now, I'm focused on season 3 and focused on this Christmas special. Before I can think about season 4 or future seasons, it's hard enough just to make sure that season 3 is good. So season 1, all I cared about was making sure it was good. I didn't think about whether there would be future seasons.
Well, Dallas, thank you much. We're going to be so thrilled to see or to get into theaters for the Christmas with The Chosen. My prediction, by the way, is that it'll go all the way through Christmas. So I'm just letting you know that's my prediction.
Well, I can tell you that won't happen, just because we've already so I appreciate the prediction, but yeah, it'll eventually be released, as we always do with our fans, free and easy to access. But the theatrical window, I'm pretty sure that's locked in stone. Churches and large groups will be able to do it all the way through Christmas. They'll be able to rent out Cinemark theaters specifically. I don't know if that matters to this conversation, but yeah, it will be in theaters. So we strongly encourage people to not assume that it'll be there after that.
Well, it just amazes me that everybody probably knows, just based on your track record, that you're going to make it available out there for free, or in churches, or to small groups, or online. But they're still willing to go to the theater and pay for it to experience it on the big screen. That says a lot about you and about your talent and about this story. So I just want to thank you.
Well, I appreciate that, and thank you so much. I think it also, they know that by doing that, it also helps us do future episodes and seasons. And our viewers love kind of participating in that process. They love the notion that when they purchase a ticket or when they buy a piece of apparel or a book or whatever, that not only are they being impacted, but it's also helping the show be free. The show wouldn't be able to be free if people like them weren't buying tickets to the theater. So that's part of it too.
Well, thank you so much. Hey, we love you and love what you're doing, and just keep the faith and keep up the good work, okay? And Merry Christmas to you.
Yeah, you too, brother. Great to talk to you.
And thank you, Dallas. What a great story of redemption for Dallas. The Chosen, the series, is a great one, and I'll tell you, you've just got to go check out this theatrical event that's in theaters right now. It's called Christmas with the Chosen, The Messengers, and it's in theaters, so check that out. It's a great way to kick off the season, celebrating the birth of Jesus. This has been CIA, the podcast from the producers of Keep the Faith. I'm David Sams. Hey, please do go out and rate and review us and give us 5 stars and share this episode with friends, especially friends who are creative and who want to make great films and maybe have a heart for making Christian films. This is an inspirational episode to share with them, so please do so. And remember to go out there and live that life in living color, because it sure is a heck of a lot more interesting than living it in black and white. We'll see you next time.